Hi, welcome back, guys. This is your friend the Momo Fanfics back with the amazing fanfiction. This is series of What If Deku Become a Wolverine? Nezu. Sitting in his office, Nezu watched the recording from the latest entrance exam. The subject of his focus was brutally efficient, tearing through the various robots with raw strength and vicious claws. The green-haired young man had the highest villain point total, while still saving several of his various classmates, a regenerative ability helping him push through and ignore any injury received. The problem was he had a feeling he knew who the boy was related to, which could spell trouble. Pulling out his private phone, he dialed in the number for an old contact that he hadn't spoken to in years, one of the world's first quirked humans who made sure to live off the grid as much as he could to avoid people. "What do you want, rat?" The gruff voice of one James Logan Howlett, aka the Wolverine, greeted him in short order. "It's about Sabretooth." Nezu's voice was serious, as he could practically feel Logan go still on the other end of the line. "You finally found a lead on him?" Logan's tone brokered no argument. Not that he could blame the man. The rivalry between those two was ancient and legendary amongst those who knew of them. "I found where he would have been during October about 14 years ago," Nezu informed as Logan made a confused grunt. "Oddly specific, but it's enough of a start for me to wait. 14 years ago?" Logan pressed as Nezu realized the man picked up on what he had implied. "Yes, a young man who just finished the entrance exam. He shows all the traits of being a feral, as you referred to your subset of metahumans. More than that, he bears many similarities with Victor Creed. The claws, the fangs, etc. Creed ain't in the kid's life?" Logan's scowl was audible through the phone. "No, raised in a single-parent home." Nezu scowled in distaste as he looked at the reports that Midoriya's middle school had sent over to dissuade him from admitting the boy. Statements about how someone from such poor standing would not make a good fit as a hero, and how the boy was a violent threat to others. He wasn't sure how much of that to believe after seeing Midoriya save several of his fellow applicants during the test. "I'll be there within a day. 2 tops." Logan's tone brokered no argument. "I'll bring Laura with me." "To track Sabretooth, or because of Izuku Midoriya?" Nezu pressed. Old colleague or not, Midoriya was now one of his students. "Both." Logan grunted. "If the kid's actually a feral, then he's going to need help controlling himself the older he gets and more he trains. Laura was about the same age when I started showing her the ropes. I'll arrange a position at the school for you and Laura," Nezu promised. "Do try to be nice to the students though, Logan." "Come on, bub, I'm always nice." Nezu could swear he could hear Logan smirking during that statement as the X-Man hung up the line. "Oh dear, this year is going to be interesting." Nezu sighed as he called in his staff. Best to have them prepared. Last thing he wanted was to start a Wolverine and Cyclops rivalry amongst his staff, no matter how amusing those stories were to hear about. Izuku. Scowling, Izuku continued to struggle on getting his tie to sit straight without cutting it with his claws. "Here, sweetie." His mother's tired but caring voice distracted him from his frustration as she moved his hands away, tying the tie herself. "Thanks, Mom." Izuku gave her a small smile, his mom being the one person in the world he could never get mad at. Not with how patient she'd been with him, how much she had put up with his temper, and how people treated her for being a single mom. "Of course, my little hero." Her smile had him grumble red-faced. "I'm not little," he grumbled as she laughed, some of the lines of stress and worry vanishing from her face as she did so. "No matter how big and strong you get, Izuku, you'll always be my little hero," his mom promised, hugging him tight as he carefully returned the embrace. "Oh, here I am dithering when you need to get to school." His mom gave him a watery hiccup as she started to shoo him out the door. "Go on, shoo. Go save the world or something." Laughing, he gave his mom a wave and made his way to the station, nodding to a surly Bakugo when he saw him. They may not be as close as they were when they were kid, but both could respect the drive of the other. For now, it was time to go to UA so he could take names and kick ass. Tamura Shigaraki. Tamura Shigaraki. The ancient voice of his master had Tamura jolt up from his seat at the bar. I have gathered some information about the upcoming students of UA that should prove useful. The students, Tamura had to keep himself from scoffing at his master. What about them could be so important? Unless, his eyes widened at the dangerous possibility. No, it is not the successor for All Might. All for One quickly shut down that worrisome notion as Tamura let out a sigh of relief. All Might being weaker was good for their plan. Him having an heir would be troublesome. Then what is it, my master? Kurogiri asked politely, getting the conversation back on track. It turns out that an old friend of mine from the dawn of quirks had a child who will be starting at UA this year. Tamura tried not to look too surprised at the mention of his master having a friend alive from that era. He was positive he failed in that regard just as Kurogiri was, but thankfully, their master couldn't see properly. Which friend is this master? Kurogiri coughed, working to hide his shock. Sabretooth. Tamura gulped, having heard about the legendary villain who worked with the very first quirked villain Magneto. And his son apparently has a stronger version of my good friend Victor's abilities. Victor is quite curious to test his son and has agreed to assist you in any plans you have regarding the UA first years. He'll be in Japan within the next few days. So, Tamura, do try and give a good first impression to my old friend. With that, the line went dead. I'll start cleaning. Kurogiri shot off while Tamura gulped, hoping this wouldn't go badly for him. Minions he could dust when they pissed him off were one thing. But from what he had learned from his master, the legendary Sabretooth was damn near immortal. Izuku. 1A. 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 Izuku muttered as he worked to find his classroom, the massive school a pain to navigate. Bakugo had already gone ahead when Izuku had stopped to grab some food though, so at the very least he had a scent trail to follow. There it is. Izuku popped the last takoyaki into his mouth as he opened the door, noting the other 19 members of the class already there. And, of course, Bakugo was already arguing with someone, a mantis-looking student who had blades starting to come out of their arms. Honestly, it made Izuku double take for a moment. Remembering the records he'd managed to find about the sperm donor he had the misfortune of being related to, and the others like them. Making friends caramel, he shot at the explosive blonde who snorted, not even batting an eye at the nickname Izuku had been using for him since they were kids. At least when they still hung out or trained together at any rate. Ha, ha, real funny. Bakugo huffed, ignoring the other vedette he'd been arguing with, the mantis look-alike getting angrier. Not that Bakugo seemed to care. Damn. A girl with pink skin gaped as she looked over at Izuku. Your guys are huge. Glancing over at the other place she was looking, Izuku noted a guy with 6 arms who looked around his own height. Or maybe you're just short. Izuku shot back with a smirk, fangs gleaming as Bakugo cackled. Pausing before he could make another quip, Izuku sniffed the air. Our teacher's getting close. How can you? A guy with oddly shaped elbows looked confused before noting that Izuku was now firmly in his seat, as was Bakugo, who hadn't even questioned it. Seeing the previously explosive blonde, now quiet and sitting, was all the encouragement that the others needed to follow suit. A mad dash for seats ending just before the door slid open. Huh, already in your seats? The dark-haired hero with black bags under their eyes looked at them with suspicion as he drained a jelly pouch. Fine, I can work with this. My name is Shota Aizawa, and I'll be your homeroom teacher. As he spoke, the man dumped a bag on his desk. These have the gym uniforms and some maps of the school. Grab the package with your name on it. Get changed in the locker rooms, and then meet me out on Field B. With that, Aizawa slunk off, not giving them any chance to protest or question. Damn. And I thought the teachers at Aldera didn't give a shit. Bakugo scoffed as he walked up to the bag first, tossing a package at Izuku while tucking a second under his arm and walking out with a map. Plus Ultra, I guess. Izuku shrugged, following behind Bakugo as the rest of the class scrambled to find their gym uniforms and grab a map. Hey dude, how did you know he was coming? A blonde with a black lightning bolt streak in his hair asked, jogging to catch up. I'm Denki Kaminari, by the way. Izuku Midoriya. He grunted, shaking Kaminari's hand, careful not to cut the blonde with his clawed nails. And I could smell him coming. And his scent stood out from the rest of our classmates. Stood out? Kaminari tilted his head as they reached the locker room, Bakugo already part way through changing. Besides the smell of the carbon fiber in his scarf, something that normal clothes wouldn't have, he didn't smell of hormones as much as a teenager would. Izuku shrugged, shrugging off his shirt as others started coming in. Get used to that kinda shit. Bakugo grunted. Nails over there may look like a dumbass. The bomber pointedly ignored the finger Izuku was giving him. But he's almost as smart as I am. Shove it, Caramel. Izuku grunted, giving Bakugo a playful, for him, shove as Bakugo staggered, an unrepentant grin on his face. Caramel? A redhead asked with a baffled expression. That's a weird name. Nickname. Bakugo grunted, holding out his hand as a series of tiny explosions filled his palm before fading, leaving behind the smell of caramel. Quirk involves nitroglycerin and leaves the scent behind. Keep this in mind, extras. If Nails over there gets to know you, and he doesn't give you a nickname, then he just doesn't like you very much. I've unfortunately known Caramel since we were kids, and I had to change his diapers. Izuku nodded, ignoring the hand that came to slap him upside the head. I am older than you, asshole. Bakugo gave him a glare. I know. Izuku grinned, finishing changing as he walked out alongside his old rival, wondering if they'd become closer friends again, now that they were in the same class once more. Logan. So, that's the kid, huh? Logan grunted, taking the unlit cigar from his teeth. The familiar item, something that helped calm his aged nerves. He's bigger than Victor was back then. His memories had eventually returned with more and more help from Jean and Charles back in the day. But that just meant more to mourn, and the knowledge of how long it had been since he'd aged. It's not just that. Nezu shook his head as they saw the Midoriya kid running in the 50-meter dash on the cameras. I was comparing his entrance exam feats as well as his run just now. He's stronger and faster than Victor Creed was at that age. Seriously? Laura asked, eyes wide in surprise, although Logan wasn't really surprised. She'd only ever encountered the Sabertooth in his prime, had no reference to the two when they were younger. The years when they'd been on the run together, their fathers having killed each other when they were children. Going through the years, the decades, and the wars with only each other for support as everyone else around them aged and died. But while he grew weary of slaughter, Victor had come to depend on it, to relish it. Then Weapon X happened. His memories were lost, and Victor spent years hunting him down where he didn't even understand why. He'd done his best to help Laura through the past couple centuries, helped her as they had to bury the X-Men one by one. And now he'd be here to try and help Victor's kid too. He was still an X-Man, and he knew that Charles wouldn't have left this kid to suffer that fate alone. Shigaraki. Sitting at the bar, Tamura swirled the glass of whiskey, his father's hand over his face, the other hands from his collection secured in their various places. He wanted them for his first impression with the Sabertooth, as well as the calm they provided him with. Hearing the familiar sound of Kurogiri's portal opening up behind him, Tamura clutched his glass tighter, careful to keep one finger lifted. So, this is where All for One has you hiding out of, huh? The deep, rumbling voice of Sabertooth unnerved him just as much as Sensei's did at times. At least this is better than the dump old Magneto would put his brotherhood in. I thank you for the praise. Kurogiri bowed respectfully. I do my best to maintain the premises. Yeah, get me the strongest drink you've got. Victor Creed's voice got closer as Tamura felt the ancient man's gaze focused on his back. So, you're the brat who's in charge around here? Yeah, what of it? Tamura narrowed an eye at Sabretooth as the man took a seat, reeking of smug confidence. Heh, you've got a lot to learn, runt. Creed scoffed, taking a glass from Kurogiri and gulping down a deep pull of the strong liquor. Ah, nah, that's some good shit, Smokes. I thank you, Kurogiri tilted his head, clearly caught off guard by the nickname. Master said you'd be helping with my goals. Tamura decided to try and get things in the open right away. Mostly. Creed scoffed, holding out the empty glass for a refill. Only if it involves US first years. Only if it involves my son. I need to test the brat after all. Izuku. Man, this stuff is so good. Izuku groaned happily as he dug into the food from lunch rush. The rest of his class dug into their own meals, albeit with far less enthusiasm. You really like food, don't ya? Kaminari chuckled awkwardly as Izuku wolfed down portions larger than what anyone else from Wano was eating. I can't help it. Izuku groaned, finishing one steak bowl before instantly moving on to the next portion. My quirk makes me need a lot of calories. Regenerating ain't easy. Plus, Lunch Rush is one of the few cooks who I can take full advantage of my sense of taste with. Sense of taste? Asui asked, head tilted as Izuku at least started to slow down on the eating. Fucker has stupid enhanced senses with his quirk. Bakugo grunted. Everything but touch from what we know. As for taste shit, I know we figured this out once. Something like I can detect one part in around 10,000 through my sense of taste. Izuku happily put another bite into his mouth. Lunch Rush able to use spices and seasonings in such subtle ways that Izuku's quirk truly let him appreciate. You mentioned being able to track by scent before. Kaminari remembered. That first day with Aizawa. Inf FNDG Cmel and TKO. Izuku tried to talk with his mouth full, much to Bakugo's annoyance. Swallow before you talk, dumbass. Bakugo looked ready to slap him upside the head, or I'll tell Auntie. Izuku had never finished chewing faster. I once lost Caramel in Tokyo when we were kids, and was able to follow his scent, even with all the people there. Izuku explained, again, once his mouth was empty, and I can find a scent trail so long as it's within the last 8 hours or so. Dude, that's awesome. Kirishima grinned. Baku bro mentioned that everything but your sense of touch was enhanced, right? So, what about hearing and vision? The fact that Kirishima could say that with a smile and not even flinch at Bakugo's expression spoke volumes for either his courage or his stupidity. Either way, impressive. If I focus, I can hear someone breathing from over 200 feet away. Izuku nodded. And I have perfect vision along with being able to see in the infrared and ultraviolet spectrums. Wait, you can see me? Hagakure jolted straight up as Izuku made a so-so gesture. I can see where you are in infrared, like a red silhouette. But that's it. Your quirk seems to be more about refracting light around or away from you than being unseen due to being in ultraviolet light or whatever. Izuku elaborated as Hagakure pouted, having hoped for more. Dude, those senses, the strength, the healing. Just what is your quirk? That's like 50 different things. Mina flailed as if to emphasize her point. It's apparently a subset of quirks that all have the same type of power suite, called a feral. Izuku explained, although from what I understand, they've mostly been seen in America. The Wolverine, Pony's eyes lit up. You are being like the Wolverine? He and Bakugo shared an unnoticed glance, having not expected anyone to know about the legendary hero from America's first hero team. And if Pony knew about Wolverine, then there was a good chance she would know of Sabretooth as well and put the pieces together. Yeah, same type of quirk. Izuku nodded, hoping she wouldn't piece the dots together. He'd rather his class get to know him before learning. He's the son of one of the world's first supervillains. Hearing the bell ring, Izuku swallowed the last of his lunch. Back to the classroom then. He slung his bag over his shoulder with a wild grin. First practical heroics lesson means we finally get our costumes. Are you even going to have a costume? Bakugo smirked teasingly, copying his actions. Or are you just going to run around all shirtless and hairy like an angry honey badger? At least my design doesn't have eyeliner. Izuku shot back, playfully shoving his rival as Bakugo barked out a laugh. Laura. Arms crossed, Laura stood next to her father and All Might as they observed the various students approaching. She could see them through the shadows and easily spotted the green hair towering over the rest of his classmates. Oi, Johnny Bravo, they're coming. Laura called over to All Might, who pouted. Oh, come on, I'm not that bad with women. All Might grumbled as she snorted. Glad this guy actually had a sense of humor, rather than a stick up his ass like Summers used to. Oh my gosh. A short blonde girl with horns gasped, eyes wide and damn near sparkling when she saw Laura and Logan. You're X-23 and the Wolverine. The blonde girl exclaimed in English. I didn't realize you were in Japan, let alone still doing hero work. Didn't expect to have any fans. Logan grunted, trying to pass off what she was sure was him being flustered through his usual grumpy persona. Plenty of telepath-provided therapy had softened him up, but that just made her old man that much more fun to mess with. Glancing over at the guy they came for, she studied Izuku Midoriya. He was definitely big. She could see how he'd certainly be taller than Victor Creed once he was full grown. Thankfully less hairy though. For those of you who don't speak English. Logan's voice snapped her from her observations as she straightened up. Work now, think later. My name is James Howlett. You can either call me Logan, or by my hero name Wolverine. Much to her surprise, she saw nearly everyone in the class seem to recognize that name. This is my daughter, Laura Kinney. Unless she says otherwise, her hero name to use is X-23. A title he hadn't been pleased she'd kept, but it gave her closure. Take back the name and do something good with it. And in case you have forgotten while changing, I am All Might. The blonde goofball that reminded her of a less fuzzy Kurt when it came to personality flexed. If you have forgotten in that 5 minutes, then go see Recovery Girl to look for brain trauma. Logan ignored how All Might, metaphorically, deflated. The three of us are going to be your instructors for practical heroics. Laura stepped in. Classes will be either group exercises and competitions where all three of us oversee everyone, or more individualized training sessions where we divide you up into smaller groups so that you get more focused training. Today we're starting simple. She reached over and, without looking, slammed a fist down on a big red button, careful not to break it. At the press of the button, various panels started to slide up, revealing a series of harnesses and gloves. Well, simple-ish anyway. You're going to be divided into partnerships of 2. Logan picked up. Done randomly, so don't even bother asking if you can pick, or bother complaining. Everyone will have on a harness with their seat number. All Might grinned, and given a randomly selected glove. Each glove is keyed to another person's vest. That means you and your partner have to track down your targets, and then capture them through surrender, or the capture tape stored in the glove, all while having to avoid being captured by those hunting you in turn. Laura finished up with a smirk, especially as not every partnership will be even. Just because a duo comes after your partner, doesn't mean they're after you. So, if that happens, then you'll just have to continue on your own. To win today, you not only have to capture your target, but you have to avoid being captured before that happens. Also, you can only capture your target. Today's exercise is to get a feel for your current combat ability, how well you improvise, as well as your ability to work together. All Might laughed. Now, let's see those partnerships. As All Might slapped another button, 10 screens lit up, names rotating rapidly before settling on the partnerships. Team 1. Katsuki Bakugo and Setsuna Takage. Team 2. Toguru Kamakiri and Fumikage Takoyami. Team 3. Jiroda Shishida and Denki Kaminari. Team 4. Koji Koda and Ejiro Kirishima. Team 5. Pony Tsunatori and Mina Ashido. Team 6. Izuku Midoriya and Ibara Shiozaki. Team 7. Ochako Uraraka and Hanta Siru. Team 8. Mizo Shoji and Toru Hagakure. Team 9. Kyoka Jiro and Yui Kodai. Team 10. Tsuyu Isui and Shoto Todoroki.